Hello, everyone. Welcome. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Feel free to introduce yourselves in your chat while we are beginning our webinar today. So my name is Alex Spengler. I'm a head of product here at Birdie, and talking a little bit about Birdie. We are a feedback analytics platform for product teams, and our mission is to empower product people to let them make better decisions by leveraging the voice of customer feedback. If you are interested in learning a little bit more about us, please visit birdie.ai, where you can learn more about Birdie. But I know that today you are not here to listen to me. What you really want is to know and see what content Julia will bring to us. So it's a pleasure to introduce you to Julia, currently Senior Product Manager at Miro, who will give us a masterclass about product discovery. So Julia, it's a pleasure to have you here. Please welcome aboard, and the screen is yours.
All right, everyone, great to be here with you guys. Thank you, Alex. So I will start sharing my screen here. All right, so presentation is naturally done in Miro. Let me start the presentation here. All right, so today we're going to talk about product discovery. First, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I'm, as Alex said, I'm a senior PM here at Miro, a senior product manager. I am what they consider a third culture kid. So I grew up just all over the place. My mom is Brazilian, my dad is Dutch. I grew up a big portion of my life in the US, was born in the British Virgin Islands in the Caribbean. So just a little bit of a mess. So don't really have like a true cultural identity. I'm currently living in Amsterdam. So yeah, a lot of learnings throughout my childhood. I'm passionate about solving problems and building things in different formats. I've had experience in different companies with a background in business, marketing, and product. I worked at large companies like Uber, also smaller, earlier stage companies like Loft. I'm currently in Miro, and I've also had entrepreneurial experience. I have overall 13 years of experience just building a lot of cool things. So it's been a really cool journey. All right, so the agenda today, we're going to cover what is product discovery, just to get everyone on the same page. I think we have mostly a PM audience here, or just product development in general. So I'll go fast through this. Also, we'll talk about what the product development lifecycle looks like in Miro, what we consider when choosing a validation strategy, and also how customers and stakeholders can kind of help amplify our perspective, so we don't, get stuck in the trees or stuck with a knowledge curse. And also, I'll give you guys a few examples of my latest product discovery projects, and then we'll go to Q&A. All right, so first, what is product discovery? Product discovery is the process of identifying and understanding customer and business needs to inform the development of successful product. So at Miro, just for context, we here at Miro, we have 3 different main stages of the life cycle. So we have what we call the thinking stage. We just simplify the terms just so it's easy for everyone at the company to understand. So it's thinking stage, building stage, and shipping stage. In the thinking stage, what we're trying to validate is, are we building the right thing? Like, are we choosing the right bets? The building stage is after we've chosen the bets, are we building the thing that we chose, the bet, right? And at the end, the last stage, we're trying to evaluate if we were successful in our choices. And throughout this life cycle, we're very connected with the user. So we use just the continuous validation process and discovery process, but we use several different strategies to be able to validate our product and to validate just all the decisions that we make throughout the life cycle. And what we consider when choosing a validation strategy is always like the value and effort of this format of validation, right? So like discovery doesn't come for free. You shouldn't just do continuous discovery just because it's the right thing to do. You should do it to be able to get value, but it comes at a cost, right? So you always have to evaluate what value you're trying to get out of this research or out of conversations with users, out of data analysis, etc., versus the effort, the cost that this will have. And the cool thing is that now you guys are all aware, I think we're all on the same train here, is that AI is helping, and Birdie, for example, is helping to reduce this effort a lot, which makes the continuous discovery process just a lot less cost, and then the equation and the end becomes a lot more healthy, and you're able to do just this discovery a lot more frequently. So here, this is a slide I'd like to spend the most amount of time. So this is some of the criteria that I consider when choosing the right method to be able to validate some of the decisions that we need to make. So the first thing that I consider is what is the maturity of the product that I'm working on? So am I working on something super early stage, something that is pre-product market fit, 0 to 1? Like I still need to understand the problem space. I still need to understand if users have enough pain or there's enough value in this opportunity to be able to create a solution around it. Afterwards, I need to understand if the solution is actually solving the user's needs and therefore get to product market fit. So that's if I'm in 0 to 1. But if I'm in optimizing, like the 1 to 100, optimizing existing product, then I consider a whole set of different questions and risks as well, right? So if I'm optimizing a feature that is highly used or a product that is highly used, there's risks of disrupting existing user flows, or just changing what users expect, and this is a big risk for optimizing new products, right? So not every change is a net new change. It's a good change, right? So a change could be for the worse when you're optimizing existing products. So here I try to consider like, okay, so what category of product, what maturity of product am I looking at here? So the second criteria that I look at when choosing a validation strategy is what type of risks are we looking at? So this is correlated with the first item that I said, but so for example, in pre-product market fit products, you normally have a lot more value risk. However, you can have value risk in when you're optimizing a new product, right? So I'm trying to figure out what is the type of risk that I'm trying to assess, or I'm trying to de-risk. So depending on the type of risk, we choose different ways to validate it, right? So for example, for usability, we use a lot of prototypes, but there is just some usability risk that the user actually needs to actually have a working product, to be able to experience the full value. So sometimes prototypes don't work, and we actually need a functioning build for the user to test. Viability risk. So how difficult is this to build within the current code infrastructure? So we do a lot of product as a proof of concepts, POCs, to be able to evaluate the viability risks of some of the features that we want to build. Also, the third, so moving on to the third criteria, I look at the right time to validate each risk. So we tend to learn different things across the development life cycle, and also we don't want to just bundle up all of our learning at the start, like front load everything and then waterfall everything, right? Do we want to have a continuous learning process? And if we decide to test different things at different times, the equation of the cost and the value is different. So that's why you have to pick the right timing of when to validate each thing. Fourth here is figuring out, okay, so I figured out that I do want to test it, and I have figured out what kind of risks I want to mitigate. Now I need to learn how I can actually learn this, how I can mitigate this risk. And a lot of times the things that we want to learn is, some people take this for granted, where you can't just learn it by talking to users. There's a recent example that we were trying to figure out why in Miro, some people use sticky notes for feedback versus comments. And it was a question that we tried to ask users, and it was just really hard for them to be able to tell us why, like, what is the decision? Because it's a subconscious decision. We did get some signals there from conversations with users, but we figured out that the best way to validate this and try to learn this wasn't actually via conversations with users, but just observation. So there's just different ways for you to be able to learn different things depending on what you're trying to learn. So just figuring out the right strategy there, the right research format. Normally UX researchers can help you a lot with figuring out what is the right method to be able to learn what you want to learn. And also the last thing is don't forget about what you already know. So in this continuous discovery world that we live in, we sometimes tend to ignore that, like, maybe we already know a lot, or maybe our company has done research that is very similar to what we're looking for, and it's just a matter of reanalyzing some of the user quotes or rewatching some of the user interviews to maybe extract a different format of insight, but from the same raw data. So figure out what you already know, and maybe if you've been owning a problem space for a long time, you might have researched this like 1 or 2 years ago, and you might have that information, or someone else in your team or your company could have this information. So researching can be expensive. So always think about what you already know and try to build on top of what you already know. All right, so moving on, one thing I wanted to specifically call out is the importance of intuition. So we tend to, in a very data-driven and data-informed world, we sometimes reduce the importance of intuition, and we'd always need like references and fact checks for absolutely everything that we act upon. And I just want to underscore the importance of how intuition pairs with data. So we should never rely our product decisions just on intuition. However, when you pair it with quantitative and qualitative data, you actually get actionable insight. You actually get something that you can work with. So just processing this information and adding a layer of intuition just makes the insight a lot stronger. But in summary, I give you guys a lot of different things to think about how I do it here at Miro. But it's not easy. It's not a one-size-fits-all playbook. We all know that 95% of products fail, and our job is just to learn the most amount of tools we can access this toolbox whenever we need at the right time. The key is the reason I talked about just the criteria for choosing different research methods, it's about picking the right tools at the right time. And one thing that helps me increase the likelihood that I've chosen the right strategy is just to loop in others. So I document a lot of the plans that I have, either discovery plans or even PRDs, etc. And really look to get early and often feedback from stakeholders, and they can really help you amplify your perspective, remove bias, and increase your confidence in the way that you're thinking about this. And the one very important thing is when you're documenting your research plan, for example, your discovery strategy, is to document what are your assumptions, what you clearly know, and what are hypotheses, and what you would like to know. So a lot of times we mix up, what we believe versus what's actually factual, and that makes the interpretation of data very much more difficult, and it also reduces the power that stakeholders can have to actually help you. All right, I see some questions coming in. I'll leave them to the end. All right, and then a second tool here that I love to use is just constant contact with customers, which can really help you get out of the trees and overlooking the forest. So we talked about in the previous slides about these validation strategies, research plans, etc. So those are more, usually I use those as more structured projects to de-risk something, or to learn about a big problem area, or validate a solution. But here, what I'm talking about is just having casual conversations with customers frequently. So Teresa Torres talks about doing it every week. I don't necessarily do it every week. It's very time consuming to be able to do this every week, but I do read customer feedback every week, sometimes multiple times a week. And I talk to customers at least 2-3 times a month. And they really help me just reframe things. Sometimes I'm not even learning something new, but I'm learning like a different way to frame the same information, which helps in solutioning afterwards. So both perspectives, like seeing the tree, seeing the details, and also looking from above, just having a bird's eye view is super important for building great products. All right, so now we talked a lot about theory. I'm gonna just give you guys some examples of my recent product discovery projects here at Miro. So I will show you guys the different strategies that I used for these different projects. So the first one is more of a problem space discovery. So we were researching the problem space of user conversations on Miro boards. And it was for the vision of the new scope of our team. So our team pivoted in problem spaces, and we needed to kind of define the boundaries of our team. And we wanted to do this from a user point of view. And we used several different sources and different methods. So we used a lot of desk research, a lot of market data. There's a lot of available market data around just user conversations on SaaS tools, on content-based tools. So this is a pretty common pattern. So there was a lot of existing available information, and desk research is just a lot cheaper than creating your own research. We used user interviews and surveys, a lot of data analysis, and just opportunity sizing of the problem space, and then later opportunity sizing of the potential bets. So those were the stages. And the other two, clustering the early stage clustering that we did, and also revamping of comments are more specific to individual products. So the first one, clustering, was an early stage 0 to 1 product, and the comments is optimizing an existing highly used product. So the big difference here is we relied a lot, like the early stage product clustering, we relied a lot more on qualitative user interviews and just really staying close to the user. So we were trying to figure out, so in this clustering product, this was 2 years ago, so it was before AI models got really good at the way they are now. And we were trying to solve for the user need of users use Miro boards for user research, and they just basically dump all the user quotes and user interview notes on Miro, and they try to cluster it visually on the board. And if you, depending on how you tackle this problem, you could build a huge product, or you could just narrow the actual pain, like smaller pain point that you want to solve. And we, in this discovery process, we were trying to slice the problem that we were going to solve and prioritize the use cases. Since this is a very iterative process, which should not be done 100% by machine, but should not be done 100% by humans, because otherwise it's too slow. It's very, there's a lot of co-creation sessions to be able to get the balance right. And it's a very trust-based product, right? I think Birdie has a lot of experience with this. It was really interesting to do a lot of just co-creation sessions, usability tests, and just like adapting, the right balance of human interaction and AI interaction. And then for comments, it was because it's a mature product and we have a lot of existing data, a lot of existing user behavior just that we can query. We heavily relied on data analysis. And there's also a lot of feature feedback that comes in, constant stream of feature feedback. So there was it was the lowest cost in terms of learning that we had here to be able to build a strategy on how we would revamp comments. So yeah, these are 3 examples of the different ways that I've used product discovery methods in the past few months. All right, so now we can go to Q&A. All right, should I read the question? Oh, no, you're going to read the questions, right, Alex?
Yeah, I can help you. So congratulations, Julia. But jump into the questions. So the first one is from Luke. And he asks, how do you manage conversations around your intuition plus actionable insights? And we have another question from Jefferson, and that's similar, where he asks, how do you reconcile insights when quant and qual data and intuition is not aligned? So your answers.
Yeah, that's a really good one. It's hard. It's not a straightforward answer. So I think for me, what's most important is to always just make very clear what is your hypothesis and what is user data or just data analysis. So what is coming factually from some other source and what is coming from your intuition, your hypothesis. And then I think if you go back to your decision-making process, right, you're trying to figure out what is the best thing to do. You have to make a case, right, on what you believe is the right decision to make, and then have your supporting arguments, but always be very explicit to stakeholders what is your hypothesis and what is actually based on user data. And I would just circle this with other stakeholders and get their perspective as well. And what normally makes kind of gut checks, if your intuition makes sense, is to include different perspectives on there. So I normally just talk to other other colleagues that might have a point of view on this, and I display the 3-4 different points of view and the pros and cons of each, so that makes sure that you're not being biased with your intuition. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, perfect. A second question, also from Jefferson, it's how do you take competing products into account?
How do I take competitive products into account? So I'm guessing that this has to do with like this, when do I take competition into account? So yeah, this is a big part of analyzing the current market. So we, like, the way I think about it is from a user point of view, they're used to using products all over the place, right? So we have to think about, like, is the solution that we are providing better than what they currently have available in the market? In that sense, just competition is, you always have to think about it not as like I want to match what competition is doing, but we have to think about it from a user point of view of is the user actually getting superior value with what you're delivering. So that's one way to look at it. The second way is in terms of user patterns. So if the user is used to, I don't know, using comments, for example, on Miro versus all these other platforms, are you introducing new user patterns that are maybe not as intuitive to users on other platforms that they're used to using? So competition is really a benchmark of like, okay, what is the current standard for users? And I take that into account when building new solutions or optimizing existing ones.
Awesome. Another question that is, do you conduct the user research product discovery on your own in the PM role, or you involve other roles as UX designers or UX researchers? If other roles are involved, how do you split the work, or do you do it all together like peers?
Cool. Yeah, so here at Miro, we have a team of UX researchers that help us a lot. We have over 50 product teams, PMs. So the UX research team is a lot smaller, so they can't cover all projects for all PMs. So what they do is they have different engagement models. So for very big projects, very big discovery initiatives, where there's high risk and there's just a really big need to uncover this problem space, for example, they get involved and they lead it. However, for usability tests, for more low touch validation, normally they just have a consulting role. So we draft up a research plan and they give us feedback on that. So the level of engagement depends on the size of the project. And also there's some prioritization on a stream level that is done. So when it's a consulting role, we have to lead it on our own. And there is a lot of playbooks internally of how to conduct non-biased user interviews, et cetera. So we do lead a lot of that. Both myself and my designer, we lead that on our own often.
Perfect. Our last question here. How do you segment the users? By jobs to be done, by company size, or the user cases specific to the industries, or based on specific user behaviors?
Yeah, this is a good question, and it's not a one-size-fits-all question. It really depends on what is the framework that is going to be most useful for you to solve the user's problem. So we, in the past, for example, we're building presentation mode, which I've just used. My sister teams have built that. And the way we were thinking about it was per user role before. So by like if they're a PM or if they are a designer or if they are marketing, etc. And that wasn't like the best way to think about it. So we started thinking about it, about who is actually just in showtime, who is actually having to facilitate that meeting, and who is actually just a participant or might be a co-facilitator. So that's one example. I have to think about some others, but it really depends on what is the framework that is going to best help solve your user needs, and it cannot fragment to a point where it's not useful anymore. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Nice. Last minute question. How do you balance your time between discovery, building, and publishing new features? How many features, products do you work simultaneously? For me, it's usually 2 or 3 different stages. Radek, it's saying this question.
Yeah, cool. So I mean, it depends on a lot of factors. I have a really good partnership with my engineering manager, and our development team is very mature. So they lead a lot of the building stage work. I normally prioritize and kind of define epics and initiative levels, but they help me prioritize and just break down work on the story level, on the task level. So that gets me out of the building stage and free to be able to focus on the thinking stage more. And because of the complexity, the level of complexity of products we're building here at Miro and the connections that we have with just a lot of other teams, my time is more valuable staying longer on the thinking stage. So I would say, I don't know how to put a percentage on that, but I would say that most of my time is within the thinking stage because of my strong partnership with my engineering manager. And in terms of how many products at once, I try not to think about, 2 or 3 initiatives at once, otherwise it gets too much. But yeah, they're normally at different stages. Sometimes there's a little bit more depending on the size of the initiative.
Nice. One last question. That's the last one, I promise you. How do you balance keeping developers occupied while the product trio, engine manager, designer, PM focus on discovery activities that take longer to create new opportunities for development? Example, research, design sprints, rapid prototyping, etc.
So this, I think it really depends on the maturity of the product that you're focusing on. So if you are really early stage and there's a lot of uncertainty, it's you have to have like a much more agile dynamic, and you have to the gap between the thinking stage and the building stage is just a lot shorter. And the grooming, for example, of the thing you're going to deliver like in the next sprint has to be much closer to when you're actually going to pick it up. So you're done, like all of the tasks are done on like a much shorter life cycle. So that's how we used to operate when we were in this touching products that were just had a lot more uncertainty. And just we try to get like the whole team to participate in this learning process. So they kind of understood what was changing. They understood from the user what was changing. They were taking user interviews, etc. So like we cut a lot of the time it took for the developer to understand what had changed by him like talking to the user. However, now we're focusing on optimizing a very big existing product. So we're revamping comments in Miro, and there's a lot less uncertainty. So we have project plans for like, we know what we're going to deliver like in the next 6 months, for example. So that we have like a huge backlog of stuff for developers right now, just because the certainty is much higher. So yeah, it really depends on the maturity.
Okay. Julia, thank you for your content today. What's incredible content. And I hope that you enjoy, stay with us a little bit. And thank you everybody
Thank you so much.
to listeners. And I hope to see you in following webinars with Birdie. So thank you again, Julia.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alex. It was a pleasure. Great to meet everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.